Nathan, who are we?
We are Helen Tovey.
Editor of Family Tree.
There you go. And Nathan Ward. Hello there. And this is Family Tree Talk.
Yes, and it's our lovely podcast, and we love chatting about family history non-stop. And do you know what? I'm so excited because this week we've had a bit of podcast fan mail from Canada.
Canada, lovely.
I know. I just love it. It feels like Sleepless in Seattle or whatever. I've got, just this kind of lovely image of family historians all over the world, and we're all buzzing about family history. And in the crazy, difficult times we live in, there's family history to keep us all connected and sane and happy.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I'm a little bit terrified it's come from Canada, though.
Yes. Well, okay, so it is a fan, but he's also a really, really friendly guy. He's called Randy, and he heard us mention Pier 21, which was the immigration station for people arriving in Canada. And you had mentioned that potentially you have an ancestor who had gone from the British Isles to Canada, and me and you were just basically really feeling our way. I don't have any experience of researching Canada. I had to kind of dredge up in my brain that it was Pier 21 we were talking about. Randy confirmed that was correct, so that's good. No confessions to mistakes, which has made change to me, which is nice. And he has really kindly offered that he would go to Pier 21 and find out what you want him to find out. So we need to, at some point, look at your family history and find out what we would like to send the detective, Randy, off to go and find out about your ancestors for. So, I mean, that's such a generous, spirited thing. And family historians are really, really generous people. I just love it. I say, shout out to all family historians just for being kind and helpful to each other.
Yeah, that's really lovely. That's really cool. That'll help me when I get to it. That's why I'm feeling bad. When you said Canada, I was like, oh my gosh. Like last time I said I was going to go down the rabbit hole. I had 3 or 4 rabbit holes to go down, and one of them was the Canada and immigration one. I obviously haven't done that. I've gone other places. And I'm very aware that obviously on this podcast, every week I'll talk about what I'm going to do. And then I go away and I do something completely different. And then I feel really guilty. It's like, we just told everyone I'm going to do that. And they might expect a follow-up. And then I've gone tangentially somewhere else. But maybe it's just a true reflection of family historians. We're
Absolutely is.
all over the place.
Yeah. Do you know, since last May, so May 2024, well over a year, I've been trying to establish who Mary Ann Pickering's father is. Have I done that? No. She just languishes there, and she's been languishing there, I don't even know how long, 10 or 15 years without a father or without a known father. Well, she's got a father on my paper tree, but there's big question marks over him and stuff like that. So she just languishes. Meanwhile, I jet around doing all these other different things. I had a massive rabbit hole. Should I tell you about my worst? I haven't actually done the massive rabbit hole, but I've had 2 rabbit hole things this week. Can I tell you one of them? And then you talk.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so my uncle sent me these CDs, and they were recordings of my granny made about 2 years before she died. And I'm really, really grateful to the person who made these recordings. It wasn't a family member, it was someone who was interested in what my granny did in the Second World War. And she was in SIS, which was the Special Intelligence Services. So she was, say, just a secretary, but she kind of brushed shoulders with people who were going undercover out to Europe, out to occupied Europe, and she had to type up all the memos and things like this. So it's pretty exciting. She went to a party with somebody who murdered 3 people, but they'd recruited him because he was really good at being an undercover spy. So this is not at all what you expect my granny to have done. And one of the things in the recording, she said between, my query, I wanted to find out what were my grandparents doing on VE Day. Yeah?
Yeah.
Remember that thing?
I do remember.
Anyway, so I've now found out what she was doing. She was partying. So between February and May 1945, she went to bed before 2 o'clock in the morning once because the Americans had arrived, in her words, and every night was a party. Literally every night, apart from one night, was a party. It's mad, isn't it? It's just bonkers.
It's brilliant. I mean, there's so many fascinating stories you can get from that already.
Yes.
Really exciting.
So that's not even the rabbit hole. So the rabbit hole is, she was talking in the recording. She was talking about how she met my grandpa. So he was one who was a prisoner of war. And we chatted about him a few months ago on the podcast. But anyway, through the war, so this was in relation to the party. She said all through the Second World War, she was actually extremely honourable and diligent to her virtue or whatever, didn't do anything that her mother wouldn't have been proud of. And the reason why is because just before the Second World War, she had got this boyfriend, a sweetheart, beau, whatever you're going to call him in those days, someone she was walking out with, and he was called Tappy. Okay. And so she kind of sworn herself to Tappy. So she thought, well, I better not do anything because me and Tappy are an item. Anyway, what turned out was Tappy got taken as a prisoner of war in Manchuria. I didn't even know where Manchuria is. I'm going to have to find that on a map. Hey, scroll forward. The Second World War lasts for 6 years. She's 18, 19 at the beginning of it. So all through her early 20s, for 6 years, she doesn't see anyone else. She doesn't date anyone else. She goes to lots of parties, doesn't date anyone because she's holding out for Tuppy. She meets up with Tuppy at the end of the Second World War, and they both agree, the flame's gone. Yeah, and my granny had at that point just met my future grandpa. And anyway, then her and Tuppy went their separate ways, and a few months later, in the post arrived a wedding invitation from Tuppy, and my granny had sent him a wedding invitation to her wedding, and they got married without knowing it on the same day, on the same date, at the same time.
Wow.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
So now this is my rabbit hole. I need to find a list of prisoners of war who were prisoners of war in Manchuria, and then I need to cross-check those names with the GRO free BMD marriages in the June quarter of 1946 to find which names overlap, and then I will have my short list of who Tappy was, and I can find out who Tappy was.
Yeah, that's fab. And you can find out the exact place he got married and stuff.
I know.
Same church in the same village.
Yes, yes.
That's weird, isn't it? That's really like bizarre connection.
It's really weird. Anyway, what have you been getting up to?
Oh, well, I don't want to talk about anything now. Mine's going to be really, really boring.
It will never be boring.
I've not got anyone who's met Paddy Mayne. She could have met Paddy Mayne, couldn't she?
She could have done.
Oh, wow. Okay, so I went away last time, and I think, as I've said, I had 4 particular rabbit holes I fancied going down. When I sat down to actually start the rabbit holes, I looked at my tree, and my personality just flipped entirely. I was just like, I don't want to be doing rabbit holes. I've got gaps in my tree. I want to get back as far as I can. So I started doing that instead. And in doing that, I've probably found a few more rabbit holes, but equally, I've got a few research issues with ancestry, which I want to ask you about. It's not behaving the way I expected it to, or I'm doing something very wrong, or wait for it, it could be that I'm doing something different, because obviously normally I go on the hints. So basically, I don't know why. No, I do. Great grandparents, 3 times removed, whatever. I think I had a gap of 1 or 2 people. So I thought, right, I'll fill that gap in and go further back. Started doing that, and I got the layer back, and it's this guy called Edward Lupton. I found his marriage certificate. I found him on the census. 1 second, I have notes on my research log. I'm such a goody two shoes. I've got a list of questions on my research log that I need to just consult because it's the best thing ever, isn't it? Right.
It really is, honestly. Yeah.
So, yeah, I was going back, and I don't know what, I think there was 1 little gap, and then this little gap made me go back on that line randomly. And it was a random choice. I wasn't really focusing. I just wanted to fill in some details, names and addresses. So I found the Luptons, and I found out about Edward Lupton, and he married this woman called Christina Gill. Got the wedding certificate for that. All is fine. On the wedding certificate, it obviously had Edward's dad's name, which was Edward Lupton also, which is obviously very frustrating because it annoys me when they're all the same name. I wanted to add Edward Lupton to my tree, but I did. I added Edward Lupton on my tree from the wedding certificate. So it said, Edward Lupton's dad is Edward Lupton. I then wanted obviously more details about him. I found him on the census on the 1841 census, and I actually did research. Through the hints, it wasn't doing what I wanted it to do, where it would just pull in the people that were in the house on that date. So I thought, right, I'll do a proper search. So I went in, searched through the censuses. I knew it was already on the 1841, so I did 1841, and I typed in Edward Lupton. When it came up, the add to tree was only linked to the son, Edward Lupton, not to the father, not to the mother or any of the other family members who lived in that house. What am I doing wrong?
You're not doing anything wrong, but I think it raises a really interesting point that I haven't noticed before because I don't do the pulling in the details with the hint thing. But this is why this is what I suspect is happening. So from the 1851 census onwards for Scotland and England and Wales, because Ireland has very piecemeal, tiny bits of census which survive. So we're thinking Scotland, England and Wales, 1851 onwards, there's a column which is called relationship to head of household, which sounds so clunky and boring, but basically what it does, you have the head of the household, so in his or her column, tends to be a his, it'll say head, and then everyone else, it will say that they're the wife of the head of the household, they're the son of the head of the household, they're the grandson. But on the 1841 census, there isn't this column. So when you do go to a household and there are two people, there's Bob Green and then he's living with Julia Green and they've got Nicky Green, Lolo Green and Spike Green or whatever, they're three children, then it doesn't say the relationship to the head of the household. So fair play to Ancestry, they're not letting you just pull them in and assume that they are the mum, the dad and the three children, because it doesn't state on the record what relationship those people are to each other.
Okay.
On the kind of using your common sense, when you get two people of roughly the same age and then there's however many people 20, 30 years younger than them, you probably think you're looking at a mother and a father and a whole bunch of kids, but you might not be. And so it's not letting you make any assumptions. I love it. It's good.
Well, I did my quote unquote research and I saw that. So, like, he was 41, she was 45. So that's like the husband and the wife. And then there were 8 other people in that house. So they were all children. But there was one person on the list of been in the house who was aged 50 with a completely different surname. Now, is that again potentially Ancestry reading reading the transcript wrong, and that could be the next house on?
No, so normally what tends to happen is they'd normally do the kind of the mother and father, then all the children, and then that other person could be a lodger, or the other person could be a grandparent. It could be one of the siblings of a husband or wife, and they do tend to get listed below at the bottom. So it could potentially be Ancestry doing something wrong and adding in the head of the household for the subsequent house on the census. But I think it's more likely going to be someone who was living in their house. And also, when you look at the columns, you'll see there are these scruffy diagonal dashes written by hand, and they will mark between the houses. Yeah.
Yep.
So if you see the scruffy dashes, if they're marking below that person who's 50's name, that means that person's included in the household with your family members. And also, if you go right over on the far left-hand side of the census, then for all of the censuses, like the column headings might vary slightly, but there's going to be 2 bits of information. One will be like the document number, and one could be a house number or a house name. And on those early censuses, it can have really rubbish place details. Like if you're in a hamlet, it might just give you the name of the hamlet, and you might have to scroll back a few pages to actually get the name of a place. Yeah.
Right, you're answering a lot of my questions that I have without me asking them. That's good because I can't find, because I was like, is this an error? This person, is it right? But I couldn't find the actual address for this to be like, right, okay, she's definitely part of this household because
Or more census navigation stuff then. So if you're trying to orientate yourself in the census, definitely don't just look at your ancestors page. Look at the page before and after. And partly because you said there were 8 children. So imagine if your family was listed at the bottom of the page and you don't get that look at the subsequent page. They might have got a little baby who's over the page and you've forgotten the baby, because the kids tend to be listed in age order, don't they?
okay, yeah.
Or they might have several children over the page, or they might just have their in-laws living with them over the page. Or, so you need to check the pages either side if your family's right at the top or right at the bottom of the census page, just to make sure you've not missed anyone. It's also useful to look at the surrounding pages because you get a feel for who else is living in the community. Are there lots of coal miners? Would be a really typical example or whatever. So that's just interesting to see what the local occupations are. Then you also need to look at the preceding pages to get as many place details as you can. And you might not get a perfect address in some of the early censuses, like we want a house number, we want a very specific dwelling, don't we? But you might not get that. Another reason to look is multiple occupancy, so many families living in one house is a kind of Victorian trope, isn't it? But it really happens, and you see it in the census. So you might go to 35 Mildew Street. I'm making up all these rubbish names today. But you'll see that there are 6 households living at number 35, and you're only going to find this out by scrolling back. So don't just think it's your family living at number 65. You need to keep scrolling back. So the 1841 is rubbish for dresses, but let's have a look. So Nathan is sharing his screen, which is really good fun. So you've got the Luptons here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's Edward at 45.
Yeah, and he's a wool comber. So that's a really fantastic, typical textile industry job. And it's brilliant because he's in Yorkshire, which is, you know, the world capital of wool, isn't it? In the Victorian era. So that's great. And he's got his wife there, 40. And so over on the right-hand side, you see all those Ys. And that's not Y for Yorkshire, that's Y for yes. Yes, they were born in the county. Yeah.
Right, interesting.
So if someone else with a different county, they would know that if you look at the top of the column headings, like loads of records are like this, aren't they? If you look at the column headings, it actually does tell you what the record's about. But if you don't read this top bit, you can get left a bit floundering. So where they're born in the same county. So
Yeah.
yes and for no. Yeah.
Okay. So that woman at the bottom, Esther Gibbs, or whatever that says, Ibbins.
Yeah.
It says no.
Yes. No. You're right, it says no. Yeah.
Which point do I find out the actual address?
So if you, in your column for place, it's got nothing, but you go onto the previous page right at the top, and then it will say a place. And this is what I mean. It's basically telling you the hamlet. So that says Pleasant Row. So the chances are it's probably pretty unpleasant, but it might be pleasant. But quite often you get like Paradise Street, and it's anything but paradise. Yeah. So it's almost like an ironic, and it's not supposed to be an ironic thing, but quite often it is. So
those 2 lines there that I'm circling, that's the thing saying it's a different house.
Yes.
So she is
living with them. And so that would be really interesting. So I would definitely make a note of her surname, and it is hard to read it. Do we think it's Gibbons?
The transcript says it is Ibbins.
Okay. So Esther Ibbins, I would definitely make a note of that, because at the moment you don't know what Ruth's maiden name is. You've only got Ruth down as Ruth Lupton, and she's...
I do know what it is.
Oh, what is it?
It's Brown, but this is again because I've been too scared to add all this information in because it wasn't letting me do the pull in, and so I've found lots of documents further that like make sure it is my relations. But because it wouldn't let me add them, I was like, well, I'm a bit terrified what's going on here. So
you're not doing anything wrong. Add them. You're doing good. Somewhere, Research Log is a great place for it. Add Esther and all the details you have for her, because at some point...
on there.
Oh, goodness, I'll shut up.
Me out.
So we've got Pleasant Row, and I can see from the top of the screen it says Otley, but I would scroll back a little bit and just see if you can get any more clues about the place, because it's just useful and interesting. So maybe go to the previous page and see if there's any more clues. Okay, and so also at the top it says it's in the township of Burley. So you've got the registration district of Otley, and then the township is a smaller administrative area. So that's really helpful, because that can help orientate you more specifically. Like you might want to go on the Family Search Maps website. So just Google Maps Family Search 1851. They only have it for 1851, but it has really detailed maps showing lots of different administrative boundaries for England and I think Wales as well. So you can go and put Burley into there, and you can find out a really small locality where it is, and that will help you just gauge more specifically where your ancestors are living, and then you can start looking for this Pleasant Row and see if it still exists, or whether you can find it on any old maps. And so you can go through and page through and just see how many people are living on Pleasant Row, how many households are on Pleasant Row, because then you're gaining an idea for the road, aren't you? It's like, oh, it's a really long road. It's not a very long road. There are 20 or 30 households living on it. occasionally you're going to find a big house. It might say the vicarage or the manse or the manor farm, or it's going to have some of the big posher houses might be listed, and they can be helpful because they will very likely still survive and be marked on an old map and a new map, and you can start to think, oh, my Pleasant Row's somewhere around here. And nearly finished waffling. On the bottom of your screen here, you can see it says page 12 of 17. So that's your navigation thing, and that helps you navigate along basically the film strips. It helps you navigate through the digitized images. And if you put 1, so type 1 over the top where it says 12 at the bottom, and that takes you back to the beginning of this census piece. Yeah, and this is really interesting because the enumerator, so he gets given his area that he has to walk and hand out the census forms and then go back a while later and collect them all up once they've been filled in. But this is really useful because it tells you, and he will say, I walked down to this, if you scroll down the page a little bit.
This is also bringing up something interesting. I'll come back to it.
Okay. So he's got description of the place. So all that part of the township of Burley, which lies on the north side of the Turnpike Road, leading from Otley to Ilkley, commencing at Mr. Wilkes's and ending at the White Gate, including Greenholme. So that's where he walked. So these are all clues you can follow up, and they're not rabbit holes. They're helping you find out precisely, much more precisely, where your ancestors lived, where Paradise Row was.
Yeah, this is really cool.
It's wonderful, isn't it?
One thing that I've just seen that it kept coming up on lots of searches and lots of elements was this sky rack. So here it says 100 wapentake or liberty of sky rack upper What's that?
So what Nathan's looking at is he's looking at page 1 of his the census piece for his ancestor, where it has the enumerator's summary, or it has enumerator's description saying where he's walking. And so it's a typed form, and the enumerator writes his lovely handwriting all over it, filling in the details. So from the top, this enumerator's piece was in the county of York, WR, which is obviously West Riding. It's in the 100 wapentake Circle Liberty of Skyrack, upper division. So 100 or wapentake or whatever. These are old, ancient, medieval areas, like ancient medieval administrative areas. It's so that this is like a historic administrative boundary, yeah, but it's still in use in the early Victorian period. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I just, because obviously Skyrack sounds quite modern, and I thought, is that the name of a company? I just kept on getting loads of references popping up about this Skyrack, and I'm like, it doesn't sound like a city or a village or anything, does it?
No, not at all.
Interesting.
But that would be interesting to look into that more. And so if you did go onto that family search map site, and I can't remember, I'm pretty sure they do include hundreds and things like that. And so wapentake is very much like a Northern England name. I think down in the south, there's another word as well which has gone clean out of my head, but there's about 3 words which get used for the same kind of medieval boundaries, and wapentake is popular in the north. So you saw there where it said 100 wapentake so-called liberty, wapentake was underlined, wasn't it? Because obviously they call it the wapentake of Skyrack.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Lots of new things to research.
Exhausting.
I mean, I'm glad they asked the questions. I didn't know whether I was just being silly, but obviously it's all opened up even more madness.
Not being silly. Nathan, every week you impress me because you're so diligent with your research log, and you're so observant to what you look at, and you don't just blithely blunder on. So every week I feel a little bit jealous that you're doing so well, and I've made so many mistakes over my time doing my family history and just muppeted around.
Oh, it terrifies me. Like this part of it in particular, like literally I was like tempted to type these guys' names in manually. I'll just do this manually. I was like, I've not done this before. It just feels very wrong. But now obviously I'm gonna have to do that. But yes. Good.
When you add them in, because you're going to be adding them in manually, I could be wrong about this, but I think you're going to need to add a fact or a source. So let's say you drag them in from hints. They're probably going to have everything dragged in with them from Ancestry. But because you're not able to do that, then you need to make sure you've got some sort of source or some sort of, you need to, because otherwise in even a few weeks time, you'll think, why was I so confident about this? Where did I get these names from? Where did I get these details from?
Yes. Well, it's all on my log. So
That's fine. That's fine. And you don't have to go really mad about the source. Like, you can be really detailed. And I'm not trying to be maverick, but always I think something's better than nothing. So even if you just put 1841 census, that you know you've got detail. You found on 1841 census, you got some of these details from 1841 census.
yeah, everybody who's on my direct line, I've got saved on the Excel document where I write down the first time I've encountered them as on the source, just so I can go back later on and be like, why? How did they get here? So if it becomes a wrong answer, I know my reasoning for why I thought I'd put them on. Hopefully that won't happen though. But obviously it's gonna happen at some point, isn't it?
It will. It happened to me last week. So my brother is on holiday and in Orkney, and my dad said, "Oh, you need to look up the Orkney ancestors on his side of the family as well." And I was like, "I don't think we have got any Orkney ancestors on his side. Like, I haven't found any." And then my dad said, "Yeah, we definitely have." So I looked up my tree, and I was like, "Why have I even got these parents for this four times great granny? I don't think that's right." Me, this is all my olden days research before I got organised. I had no record of why I knew the parents. Anyway, then I managed to work out, yes, I had got the parents correct, and I could remember how I knew the parents. But that was retracing steps because I hadn't kept good notes and properly sourced information in the first place. That was a waste of time. That was naughty. Yeah.
Yeah, terrifying.
Yes.
Makes me sweat a bit just thinking about it.
It's a sweaty exercise doing family history, Louis. Continuously, the new virtuous me, continuously meeting up with my hazardous research in the past. And then I was appalled at myself. So my dad was so urgent that we had these Orkney ancestors, the Mackays and the Grants and things. So then I found myself on Scotland's People, looking through the Orkney records for Mackays and Grants, and I actually was there, actually doing this. And then I gave myself a massive slap on the wrist because I had told you only a few weeks ago when you said you wanted to be related to Ian Fleming that to go from what you know and just randomly choose someone because you want to be related to them is the most bonkers thing you can do in family history because it's just a flight of fancy, isn't it? You need to follow the paper trail methodically with no gaps from what you know to what you don't know and see where it takes you. And where it takes you is where it takes you, and you can't pick and choose that. But anyway, I'd just gone and done this just because it wasn't somebody famous. It kind of didn't feel so dangerous. But it's just as stupid and dangerous as going off trying to find you're related to Ian Fleming. So I went back to the mainland where I'd last seen them in Sutherland at the top of Scotland. And I've started researching them from there. And they may or may not lead me to Orkney, but I'll be following the paper trail.
Nice.
Family. Yeah.
Hey, good to see that you've learnt some lessons anyway.
Oh, I know. I mean, just an embarrassment. Yes.
Be more like Nathan.
Yes, be more Nathan. Yeah.
Now I am the master.
Yes.
Not at all. Oh dear. I found another interesting. Again, I've not put it down because I've not officially gone on any route. Yeah, I found an interesting. It was a land ownership, a land tax record for a house where Edward Lupton Jr. was living, and in the list of people that were living in this house, there were no matching names at all. So I don't know what it was. I need to do some research into what it was. I think it had a fancy name as well. Anyway, no one was related, but the owner of the house had the same surname as his wife to be. So I've not delved in too far yet, but I'm wondering if that's his like father-in-law to be, and that's how he might have met his wife. I'm making up stories before they've happened yet, but it's quite intriguing, I thought.
So your Edward was living in the house of his future wife to be.
He was living in the house owned by what I think might be the father of his wife to be. But everybody in that house has a different. There's no Gills in there. There's no Luptons, so it's just a random collection of people.
Mm.
And I haven't actually done this on my research log. I'm not entirely good, but I think the house name. Again, I've not put it on. I've not stored it anywhere, so I'm gonna have to go root around and find it. But the house name sounded like something fancy, like Otley House, or it sounded grand anyway. So
And it's fun to get a new record as well. So I don't have any of those records that I know of for my, I haven't looked, maybe for my ancestors in England. Like, I've found similar records for Scotland, because they're really easy to find for Scotland. They have every 5 years that they're digitized and available on Scotland's People, and so they'll include the names of the householders, and it might be tenants or occupiers. So it doesn't include the whole family like a census, but they're really useful, handy records. So is that what yours has done? It's included.
Yeah, I found it. I will share it, and you can.
Yeah, share it. I'd love to have a look at it.
It was that thing again where it's like, oh, this is a new record. I'll be having.
Yes, it's so interesting getting new records. And then once you know they're out there, then potentially in the future you might think that is just the record I need to help solve a gap between the census years, for instance, because 10 years, a lot happens in 10 years, doesn't it? And so we always need to be on the lookout for records to fill those time periods.
Going back to that, this might be naughty. Can I just cheat? Could I just go onto the 1851 census and find that suddenly all the people that I might have to add manually, I can just do as a cheeky.
I think that's a brainwave. I like it.
Yeah. Obviously, 10 years, like you said, lots can happen. So a lot of the people that were in the 1841 will have moved out. But
I think it's a really good idea.
so this is
At the point of interest, you'll find extra kids potentially being born, and as you say, some of the older kids would have moved on, and hopefully none of the children have passed away, but it's a possibility.
yeah, and see what's going on with this rogue visitor
Yes.
who lives there. Right, so this is my land tax assessment record.
Mm.
But as we've just discussed, it's in Burley. It's got the Skyrack division thing going on there again. And it says rentals at the side of it. So I don't know whether, is that the number of the house, or is that saying how many they own? Name of proprietor. And if I scroll down and find it. So here, Gil Joseph
Mm-hmm.
is the proprietor. So he owns this building. And then occupiers, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, maybe 10 people.
Yes, so I think this is different. So I have to say I'm really unfamiliar with this record, but just scroll up to the top so I can see the column headings again. Okay, so it's got the rentals, and then so Joseph Gill is the proprietor, and then in the next column over it's got the names of the occupiers, and then the next column beyond that it says a description of what it is that they're renting. So for instance, Thomas Brogden is renting house and land off Joseph.
Okay.
And Thomas is also renting another bit of land.
Right.
Edward is renting land off Joseph, isn't he? And over on the far right hand side it's got the value of the land. So Joseph's land, I would say, looking at the other amounts on the sheet for the money, the value, is a relatively small bit of land. So that's interesting what he's doing. And then it's got this number 668 over on the left-hand side. So that is going to refer to, I'm guessing, so this is one of those things where I'm going to have to either be right, yes, or I'm going to have to confess I'm wrong. Boo, in a future issue of the podcast. But I suspect there's going to be a map, maybe you can cross-refer with it.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
And it might have the locations plotted on there.
Right. So my thought that these guys were all living together is totally wrong. This is like, this Joseph Gill owns lots and lots of
He's
land,
a wealthy guy, and
and he's selling it out to lots of other people. Right?
he's renting it out, yeah.
But I mean, it might, obviously, again, I've got Gill cropping up on a couple of strands of my family tree. It could just be a very popular name, and actually just be very circumstantial that his wife to be has the surname Gill.
Or not at all, but that's another thing which is really useful to keep an eye out for. Another thing, do you ever we went on the film strip on the census, and I said press in 1, and you could go back to the beginning of the record, and then you can start learning about it. But you can do that on loads of records. Here you can press in 1 and we'll go back to the start of this digitized collection, and then you might have to scroll around a little bit to try and get the start of the records. You might have to page through a bit. Sometimes there's blank pages at the start of a record, all sorts of things, but it will tell you about what the heck's happening, what's this record about. So on page 1, sorry, it did have a summary, didn't it? As long as they have an example sheet which is filled in. So if you just, here we go, scroll up a little bit. Yeah, so Land Tax Assessment 1838, an assessment made for granting an aid to Her Majesty by a land tax to be raised in Great Britain.
Ooh.
Yeah.
There's a Lupton on there as well. Again, maybe it's just a common name.
Well, it might be. So but that's interesting to know if there are lots of, that's one of your kind of, it's worth orientating yourself and knowing how many Luptons there are in the area, isn't it? So that you know if you're going to get in a muddle with anybody. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. So I don't know about this record. So this is getting to an interesting time for land records, because in the years to follow, going through to the 1850s, then you get the tithe records, and so they're a kind of similar format, that they'll have the people who own the land and the people who occupy the land, and they'll have the lists like what we're looking at the minute, and they'll have the corresponding maps, so then you can see what that plot is, like what plot was being rented, so you can find out exactly where your ancestor was renting, which is always really nice, because sometimes historical records can be, more prone to just name the highfalutin people, whereas it's always good when it kind of names a broader spectrum of people, because then we've got more chance of finding our ancestors.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Exciting.
It is.
Sorry I couldn't help that much with that one. I mean, there is always new stuff to learn with family history, and sometimes you can feel like you've done loads of things till you're blue in the face, and then other times you just end up kind of a whole new door, and you think, oh, I've never used this record before. I don't actually know much about it. And it's worth, like David Annell always says this, it's really worth learning about the records, because if you know why they were taken, then you know potentially which areas of the country that are more covered, or which areas of the country are better digitized, and what was the reason for doing the record. So who are you likely to find or not find? So these are all like continuous questions to ask ourselves the whole time.
Yeah, I mean, like we just said, it's always very interesting when a new looking record comes up, because you are so used to the ones that naturally just give you the information to get you back. But that one paints a bit of texture, and suddenly you stop thinking about them as names and numbers, and suddenly this person's buying land, and what's he doing with that land? Is he a farmer, or is he going to build a house? And yeah, and then obviously all the other names around him on that form might not be related at all, but it's giving you a sense of the community, isn't it?
Mm. Mm.
Wow.
Yes, it's always interesting, and sometimes in old newspapers, definitely for houses, but you'll see things coming up for rent that will say 3 houses in Paradise Row, whatever it's called, Pleasant Row, for rent. And, it's just interesting to. It's the same as our lives, isn't it?
Yeah. And then that should hopefully, when I do proper research, line up with the census as well, maybe, to see where people are living. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
And keeping an eye out for Joseph Gill, and who is he? How did he get his land? What sort of land potentially is he renting out?
Mm. Interestingly, though, he wasn't on the marriage certificate for Edward and Christina, but that doesn't mean he wasn't there.
No, doesn't mean he wasn't there. He could still be. Depends what Christina's. So was a different father named for Christina on the marriage?
I'm not even sure I saw another father name on there.
Yeah.
I'll have to go back and look. I'll make a note. Well, I guess my homework for this week then is typing up the people that I now am allowed to put on my tree because they're proper. And yeah,
It is, and I think your brainwave of going to the 1851, finding the family, adding them quickly, because it's fine to do things quickly if you know it's accurate. You don't have to make things slow and boring. The aim is to not be so quick that we forgo any accuracy, isn't it? So I think it's a brilliant idea. Do that, and then go back to your 1851, 41, and there'll probably be a few people you need to add in manually.
yeah, that's cool. I like the development of that though. Like, it's making me expand my use of ancestry. Like, I was so proud of myself when I actually just searched for the census. I was like, Helen's going to be so proud of me. I'm not using a hint. I'm actually using the search facility.
Mm.
But then it didn't give me the easy add option, so I just chickened out.
And it's easy. It's easy to start second guessing yourself. I've had fun with my new branch. So with my 4 times great granny, when I'd re-established that yes, her parents were correct. I found this really interesting. So years ago, maybe even 15 years ago, my 4 times great granny was a brick wall to me, because she's called Anne Grant. She's born in roughly 1795 in Golspie, Sutherland. And when I found So I found those details from the census. So when I went to Golspie Sutherland, not literally, but in the records, there were a few Anne Grants. And I was like, oh, I don't know which one mine is. And I was like, this is a total brick wall, man. It's never going to be solved. And because I felt so dramatic that I had no idea how to work up which one was my baby Anne Grant out of the 3 possible ones. Yeah. And then life went on. I did my normal, do a bit of this branch, do a bit of that branch, kind of family history research. At this point, I hate to admit it, but totally not logged anywhere on any research log, just purely in my head. And anyway, carried on doing this, going through the decades, going through the Victorian period to get to 1856. Poor Anne dies, but she's about 60, which is too young. None of us want to die at 60, but in those days, it's not a tragedy. So she's had a few children and things. And on her death certificate, it says the names of her parents. So isn't that brilliant that her death certificate helped me verify which one of those births, because it said her father was William. There was only one with William. So I'm like, boom, that's my girl. Yeah?
Brilliant.
Yeah, it's really good, isn't it? So scroll back to this current week, then I went back to find baby Anne in Golspie Sutherland. I thought, well, I'm going to find out her siblings. And so I had loads of little things going off in my head. So I found her siblings, and she had 4 siblings. And she had Patrick, and then she had Jane and Christian. And within the last week, a good genealogist whose name has escaped me, somebody somewhere, I've heard them say this, Christian used to be a girl's name in Scotland, and then it got changed to Christina. So I'm like, oh, I think these are twin baby girls. But I wouldn't have known that until the last week when someone said this bit of information, which I thought was going to have no relevance to me. So I didn't even log it away properly. It became relevant. So I think I'm looking at 2 baby girls. And the baby girls were born on the 3rd of April, and then they were baptized on the 6th of April. And I'm like, oops, I think those twin baby girls, I think their health might have been a bit vulnerable because they're getting baptized as very tiny babies. And I thought, no, you're just making up stories. You're being dramatic. Stop being dramatic, Helen. I love making up dramatic stories. But then when I looked at the dates of the other babies, the other siblings getting born in that parish, they were all getting baptized like 2 or 3 months old. So I'm like, no, you're not being dramatic. Those twin baby girls are getting baptized very young, which for twins in, the 1790s is going to be additionally cause for concern potentially, isn't it? Yeah. So that was one interesting. It's always interesting, isn't it? Even though I'm just looking at baptism records and it's interesting. That's interesting. And then, because I was like, right, I need to orientate myself. I'd taken myself away from Orkney. I got back to where they were. I was doing all my good kosher research, following the paper trail. And so I've written myself a little research plan. And one of the points on my research plan, I can remember off the top of my head, I said, I wanted to find out about what Anne's dad did in the army. And then in brackets, I put, this is just a rabbit hole. This isn't core to my research, to kind of gently rein myself in a little bit away from the rabbit holes, because I am naughty about them. And that was like point 5 or 6 on my list of 8 little points I wanted to find out to help building the family back. And then I thought, I was just going to have a little peek at what her father did in the army, just to find out. And so he was in the Sutherland Fencibles, which, like, whatever, that didn't mean anything to me. So then I started reading about the Sutherland Fencibles, and I read it at the start of this, but it made me realise what a stupid idiot I was for saying that it was just a rabbit hole, because it's not. We're in the 1790s, and we are, war with Europe is really ramping up. We're at loggerheads with Napoleon. There are French ships in British waters trying to invade and doing all sorts of dodgy things. And the Fencibles were set up, there's lots of different Fencibles, to defend Britain from being invaded. My man, this is a really crazy period of history.
Wow, that's amazing.
How had I overlooked all of this? So it's not a rabbit hole. It's absolutely core to that family's lived experience, that they're living through a period where their enemy, Europe, is a few miles away, starting at Calais, and Britain's isolated. It might have its big swanky empire, but in respect with relationships with Europe and France are poor.
Yeah, I mean, the historical context there just massively changes the dynamic, doesn't it?
So I'm like, go rabbit holes. I will never denigrate a point of my research hole and say it's just a rabbit hole again. It's like, king of context.
I love a rabbit hole,
Yeah.
even though I changed last week. Whatever.
Yes. So now we're allowed to have as many rabbit holes as we wish.
Yes,
Yeah.
they're the best part. They're so much fun.
So I didn't even. So I'll have to update you in a kind of the future once I've learnt more about what these guys did, and I don't know anything. I don't know anything yet.
Mm.
Maybe a podcast listener might help me.
Maybe. That sounds like a really fun one as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It will be super good. So what are we going to do now then? You've got your homework. You're writing up your stuff for next week, haven't you?
Yes. I'm not going to promise anything. This is my new thing. Because I'll say, oh, I'm going to carry on going backwards and I'll end up choosing to do a rabbit hole instead. But the writing up in itself, well, getting those names on my tree, that's paramount. And then I'll see where it takes me, because I do feel like I'm already getting into a little Edward Lupton rabbit hole, like just finding out about his area. So clearly that's going to happen. You just can't do it, can you? You can't go in a straight line and just write everything down. You just get pulled in by a little bit of something else. Whatever. So that's what I'm doing.
Lovely.
What about you?
I am. Watch this space. This is almost like a point of interest. We're going to say what we're going to do, and then next week we'll come back and find out what we actually did do. In theory, I'm going to find out about my granny's Second World War bow called Tuppy and find out if I can find out what his proper name was. Yeah?
I'm fascinated by her. I mean, all of that sounds amazing. I'm really intrigued just about her job and things like that. I think that's a well, it's not a rabbit hole like we've just said, but that's just so interesting. Really appeals.
It was so, when I was listening to the recording, I thought I was going to find it really emotional hearing her voice. But to start with, when the interviewer was interviewing her, I just wanted to say to him, shut up, let her speak, and just hear her voice. And then once she started talking, I just completely forgot I was listening to a recording. It was amazing.
That's lovely.
Yeah.
That's really nice. It's really cool that you've got that.
It is amazing. And she said when she got recruited, she talked about how she got recruited to work for the Special Intelligence Services. And so she just went along for an interview. She didn't even know what it was for. And she said they asked her so many questions and she didn't know what was happening. And then they said, right, report on Monday. And then she realised what she had to do. And she, in her words, I was having kittens because I'm rubbish at keeping secrets.
She still got the job.
Still got the job. Because I don't think they asked her, are you any good at keeping secrets?
I love it.
Yeah. So find out who Tuppy was and find out about these fencibles.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear about all of that. That's all awesome.
So fun times for me. And next week I'll tell you what I actually did do.
Yes, please do.
Okay, thanks for listening then, everybody. If you'd like to keep up with tips and lots of practical information, then do sign up for our e-newsletter, because then every Monday we provide in-depth detail on a specific topic, and it has bullet points, really digestible information, not waffle rabbit hole stuff like me and Nathan do on our podcast, but actual concrete useful information. And we really appreciate anybody who's listened to this as well, so thank you.
Yep, thanks very much, guys.
Okay, bye.